Hey, do you know what time it is? That's right. It's time for Coach Lindy's podcast. The podcast to get you moving. Hi, I'm Lindy Hutchinson, a certified life mastery consultant with the Brave Thinking Institute. As a life coach, I help others transform their life as I have mine. It's not easy, but it is possible, and it most certainly is worth it. Each week, I'll share insights that inform, inspire, and ignite in you your desire to create a life that you love. So let's find out what's going on this week. So welcome to the podcast. As always, it's great to be with you. I am doing a little remodeling here in the office, so a little disheveled. But we are doing another profile in positivity. This week is Dr. Ruth. She passed away last year, which was a terrible loss, but she was in her 90s. And when you begin reading about her life, it was an amazing one. So let's look at Dr. Ruth Westheimer. Dr. Ruth was born in June of 1928, and she was a German and American sex therapist and talk show host, and that is just scraping the very, very tip of the proverbial iceberg. She was born in Germany. She was the only child of Jewish parents, and her grandmother lived with them, who she was very close to, and they attended the synagogue there in Frankfurt, which was their home. Her father was 38 when he was taken by the Nazis, and that was the last time that she saw him. They were very, very close family, so it was very sad. Things, of course, were escalating in Nazi Germany, and he went to a concentration camp, and that's where he perished. Her mother and grandmother decided that Nazi Germany was getting far too violent towards Jews, and they were very smart and very generous. In January of 1939, they sent Dr. Ruth, on something called Kinder Transport, which was an organized Jewish children escape. It was a train to Switzerland, and that was in the hopes that they would survive the Holocaust threat. And of course she did. She did not want to leave. She was the ripe old age of 10, and she said goodbye to her mother and grandmother. And for a while, and I didn't know this, for a few years, she was able to get letters. They got letters back and forth, but the letters stopped in 1941, and that is when her grandmother and mother apparently were murdered. They went to Auschwitz, from what she can tell. I guess there's some confusion about the circumstances of her mother's death, although her father ended up in Auschwitz, where he perished apparently in 1942. So she lived in the orphanage in Switzerland for 6 years. And this is a very interesting thing to me, but girls at the orphanage were not allowed to take any classes at the local schools. So she was able to get a boy at the school to secretly lend her textbooks so that she could read. So she was a student very early on, and she loved to learn. So she, for many years, lived with an irrational guilt that she thought if she had stayed in Germany, she would have been able to save her parents. And of course, that was not even close to what would have happened. She realized many years later that it was an incredible gift that her mother and grandmother bestowed upon her, which was her life, because the parents had to say goodbye, and probably most of them realized they would not see their children again. But it was unselfish because it gave their children a chance to live. So after World War II, she ended up migrating to Palestine when she was the ripe old age of 16. She ended up joining an underground paramilitary organization. And even though she was 4 feet 7 inches, so she was a little tiny thing, she knew how to throw hand grenades and shoot. And when she was 90 years old, of course, many years later, she demonstrated that she was still able to put together a Stein gun with her eyes closed. So at 90 years old, she was still able to assemble a rifle. So pretty amazing. And she said, though she was only 4 feet 7 inches tall, with a gun in her hand, she was the equal of a soldier who was 6'7". And she says, perhaps even at a slight advantage since she was a smaller target. So she learned at a young age how to survive. She lost all her loved ones and no doubt neighbors because of the Holocaust. And then learning to speak up and stand up for herself and not be afraid or have feelings of fear, but rising above it. So on her 20th birthday in 1948, she was seriously wounded. There was a mortar attack in Jerusalem in the 1948 Palestine War, and she was temporarily paralyzed. She almost lost both of her feet. In fact, 2 girls who were right next to her died. So again, she was spared. And she said in 2018 that she still visited Israel every year, and she felt like that was her real home. So at the age of 22 in 1950, she married and she moved to France with her first husband, who was accepted into medical school. And she studied psychology at the University of Paris, and she got an undergraduate degree. She supported herself by teaching kindergarten. Unfortunately, the marriage did not last, and in 1955, they divorced. Not too long after that, she ended up migrating to the United States with her French boyfriend, and they got married, and she had a daughter. And apparently, after a while, that ended in divorce. But she stayed in New York City. She earned a master's degree in psychology at the New School in 1959. And she was a single mother then. And she worked as a maid for a while. In 1970, at 42, she ended up getting a doctorate degree in education, and she studied and worked in the New York Hospital Cornell Medical Center for 7 years under sex therapist Helen Singer Kaplan. And she was 2 years in training under her, and then 5 years training other people. So in 1965, she became a naturalized U.S. citizen. And she married for the 3rd and final time. She said this time it stuck. And they were apparently very happy. She ended up getting her doctorate degree, and she started working for Planned Parenthood in Harlem and teach sex education because she realized that there was a real need and a lack of understanding, and how that is one of the freedoms that a woman can have, is understanding how things work and how she can control the size of her family and when and where she has children. So her media career started sometime after that. She ended up being on radio and television. And there was basically a topic she didn't mind talking about. I figure after you've lost your entire family and you've almost died at least once, if not maybe several times, you learn to be brave and take on things. And at the time, people were not speaking as frankly about sex as she did. And she actually became an incredible star. One journalist described her voice as a cross between Henry Kissinger and Minnie Mouse. So she was noted as having an accent only a psychologist could love, one that was dripping with chicken soup. So she had that amazing blend of authority and yet still being quite lovable. In 1984, the New York Times noted on radio that at 50, the 55-year-old had risen from obscurity to almost instant stardom. And a journalist in the New York Times says, it's hard to explain how revolutionary her humor, candor, and sexual explicitness seemed for the time. So she was someone who spoke directly, honestly, and that was her. She was very spirited, and she was very compassionate towards other people. So there's page after page after page of her ventures in the media. She was on all kinds of television programs, radio. She ended up writing over 45 books. Very accomplished lady, and she was on every talk show host, Letterman, Johnny Carson, Joan Rivers, just the list goes on and on and on. Dr. Ruth, amazing, and she passed away last year, and it's hard to find someone who had anything really bad to say about her because she was delightful, and she was very direct and honest, and if that wasn't your thing, that was okay, because she was. Dr. Ruth. There are many books about her, and you probably can find some, of course. You know, I like YouTube. Look her up. She's definitely worth understanding her background. She was very brave, and it's amazing what people can rise above when they have to. So this week, our profile is Dr. Ruth. Our power word of the week is spirited. And our train your brain thought for the week is being full of spirit and compassion. And our hey, that's funny quote for the day week is George Carlin, who said, have you ever noticed how everyone driving slower than you is an idiot and everyone who's driving faster is manic? And that is true. So take care, enjoy your week, and remember to keep building a life that you love because you deserve it. Take care of yourself. Thanks for joining me, and we'll see you next week. Bye. Hey, thanks for joining me this week. I look forward to being with you every week. And if you'd like to get in touch with me, please email me at coachlindy@lindyhutchinson.com. My name is spelled L-Y-N-D-I, so it's Coach Lindy, L-Y-N-D-I, at Lindy Hutchinson, LYNDIHUTCHINSON.com. I value what your input is, and I'm always open up for suggestions and ideas. If you will like and or subscribe to this podcast, that would be wonderful. I appreciate it. And I enjoy anything that you might want to send in, or if you would like some more information about coaching, send me an email and I will get back with you, and we'll talk about how you can create your best life. Have a good week. We'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye-bye.